It was supposed to be just another weekend escape. Ryan, a 28-year-old software engineer from Portland, was exhausted from city life. He'd recently gone through a bad breakup and was hoping that a solo camping trip would help him clear his mind. No phones, no emails, no people, just trees, air, and silence. He packed light and drove to an isolated national forest he'd visited once before with friends. But this time, he wanted to go deeper, somewhere more remote. He parked his car miles away from any ranger station and hiked until he couldn't hear a single engine, couldn't see a single bar of signal. Just endless forest. By the time he pitched his tent, the sun was dipping below the tree line. The air had that heavy, damp forest scent, thick with pine and earth. He made a small fire, cooked some instant noodles, and sat quietly, letting the crackling flames and chirping insects lull his mind into calm. But something about the silence felt too deep, like it was holding its breath. That night, around 2:30 a.m., Ryan woke up inside his tent to the sound of footsteps, soft, slow, but deliberate. Crunch, crunch, crunch. They circled his tent once, then stopped directly behind his head. His breath caught, and then he heard it. A whisper. "Ryan, come here." The voice was his own. Identical. Same tone, same pitch. It whispered again, this time from further away, like it was walking backward into the woods. "Ryan, come here." He froze. He didn't move a muscle. His heart slammed against his ribs as the whisper repeated, always the same words, always fading in and out, just beyond the tree line. He stayed like that until the sun came up, clutching his small camping knife, drenched in sweat. In the morning, he cautiously stepped outside. No footprints, no signs of animals, nothing, just the smoldering ashes of his fire and his untouched gear. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe stress was playing tricks. Maybe the forest echoed his own voice somehow. But what happened that night could not be explained. Because when he packed up and began the long hike back to his car, he saw something nailed to a tree just a few feet off his trail. It was a mirror, a broken hand mirror, dirty, cracked, with red string tying it to the bark. On the glass, scrawled in something that looked a lot like dried blood, was one word. Listen. He didn't stop. He didn't look around. He didn't even breathe too loud. He hiked faster than he ever had in his life and drove straight back to the city. He never went camping again. But weeks later, he was scrolling through his phone, deleting old videos to free up space, when he found something strange. A recording. He didn't remember taking it. The timestamp said it was recorded around 2:40 a.m. that same night. Shaky video, just darkness, no visuals. But the audio was crystal clear, and in it, there it was, his voice, whispering from the trees. "Ryan, come here." He deleted it immediately, but sometimes, when he walks past trees at night, he swears he still hears himself, whispering. Some voices are meant to be heard, but others, they're echoes from places we should have never gone. And once you hear them, they never stop calling you back. Josh was 34 when he took the night security job at an old government storage facility just outside of Indianapolis. The pay wasn't great, but it was quiet, consistent, and exactly what he needed after a messy divorce. The building itself was massive, over 100,000 square feet of concrete walls, endless corridors, and storage units that hadn't been touched in decades. The graveyard shift was simple: monitor the cameras, do a walk every 2 hours, and log any activity. Josh liked the solitude, but solitude, as he would learn, is only comforting when you're truly alone. It was mid-January. Temperatures had dropped well below freezing, and the facility's outdated heating system barely worked. That night, the silence felt heavier than usual, as if the building itself was holding its breath. At around 2:43 a.m., Josh was seated in the surveillance room sipping burnt coffee when one of the monitors flickered. Camera 6, which covered an unused wing of the facility, briefly showed a figure. At first, Josh thought it was just a glitch. The camera feed in that section often lagged, but then it happened again. A blurry shadow walked right across the hallway, slowly, almost like it knew it was being watched. No one was supposed to be in that wing. It had been locked for years. Josh grabbed his flashlight and keys, his boots echoing down the corridor as he walked toward the hallway. The moment he stepped into the area, he felt it, a pressure in the air, like walking into someone's funeral. The hallway lights buzzed above him, and every step seemed to stretch longer than it should. He checked each door, locked. He checked the corners, empty. No sign of anyone. He started walking back, trying to laugh it off. Maybe it really was just a glitch. But then came the sound, the unmistakable screech of metal scraping tile. He froze. It had come from the break room, behind him. Slowly, he turned back and walked toward the door. It was open just a crack, though he clearly remembered shutting it earlier. Inside, the single table and two metal chairs looked exactly the same, except now one of the chairs had been turned completely away from the table. He walked inside cautiously, heart thudding. On the seat of the chair was something oily. He stepped closer. A handprint. Fresh. Human. Dark and greasy, as if someone had touched it with dirty, bloody palms. Josh backed out quickly and rushed to the surveillance room. But when he rewound the footage from camera 3, placed just outside the break room, he saw something that made his stomach drop. A figure walked into the break room. Slowly. Confidently. It wasn't him. The figure's face was distorted by static, as if the camera refused to focus on it. And then, as it turned to sit, it looked directly at the lens and smiled. The video cut to black. Now panicking, Josh called his supervisor, but the call never connected. The phone buzzed and died in his hands, though it had been fully charged. He thought about leaving, but the front gates locked from the inside at night and required manual override from the control room, which was 2 floors down, near the basement. The basement. Josh hadn't been down there since he started. They told him it was sealed off because of a past carbon monoxide incident. But tonight, the override panel was the only way out. With a deep breath, he descended the old metal staircase. The smell hit him first. Mold, rust, and something dead. The override panel was in a small office to the left of the basement storage units. As he turned the corner, his flashlight flickered. And there, right in the hallway, was an open locker. He didn't want to look, but something drew him closer. Inside the locker, placed neatly, was an old security badge. He pulled it out. It read, Joshua Lane, Night Security Officer. His name, but the face wasn't his. He felt a cold breath against his neck. He spun around. No one. Just the darkness, and the low hum of electricity from the old wiring. Terrified, he slammed the locker shut, grabbed the override switch, and ran back upstairs. As the front gates slowly unlocked, Josh felt the distinct sensation of being watched. Not by one set of eyes, but several. He never went back after that night. Some places aren't just haunted by the dead. They're hungry for replacements. And when the silence gets too deep, it starts whispering your name. Hospitals are strange at night. The same bright white halls that feel safe and busy during the day become unnaturally quiet and suffocating once the sun sets. For Maya, a 28-year-old nurse working at a mid-sized hospital in Ohio, the night shift had always been a mix of exhaustion and eerie moments. But in the winter of 2021, one of those moments became something she could never forget. Maya had just clocked in for a 10-hour shift in the ICU. It was around 11:30 p.m. Most of the hospital lights had been dimmed for the night except in the emergency areas, and the halls were nearly deserted. Around 2:15 a.m., while charting vitals at her desk near the east wing, Maya noticed something strange on the floor's monitoring board. Room 304, marked as vacant, had triggered a motion alert. She double-checked the chart. That room had been cleared earlier in the day after the elderly patient passed away. It was locked, sanitized, and not scheduled for use until the next morning. Maya frowned, figuring maybe a sensor was acting up. She grabbed her tablet and walked toward the room, her shoes squeaking slightly on the polished tiles. When she got there, the door was shut, but the light inside was on, even though it had been turned off earlier. She slowly opened the door and found nothing. The room was empty. No bed sheets, no equipment, no signs of life. But as she turned to leave, she heard the unmistakable sound of a mop swiping across the floor behind her. She spun around. A janitor in a dark blue uniform was silently mopping in the far corner of the room. His back was to her. Maya blinked in surprise. "I didn't know they were cleaning this one tonight," she muttered and stepped back out, closing the door softly. Back at the nurse's station, she asked her colleague Jenna if the janitors had been assigned to the East Wing. Jenna shook her head. "No, they're cleaning surgical tonight. This whole wing's off duty till morning." Maya paused. "Then who's in 304? Jenna looked confused. "That room's locked. Why?" Maya stood up immediately and rushed back toward the room. This time, it was pitch black. The door creaked open slower than before. No light, no mop, no janitor, only the faint chemical smell of cleaning fluid, and a single wet footprint near the doorway, leading into the hallway. Maya's blood ran cold. She stared at the footprint, slowly fading as the floor dried. She followed its direction out of pure instinct, her heart thudding with each step. They led around the corner, and then stopped, right in front of the ICU supply closet, a place only staff had access to. She opened the door cautiously, expecting supplies. Instead, she found a mop leaning against the wall and an old, dusty blue janitor uniform folded neatly on the floor. The name stitched into the fabric read, Walter T. She didn't recognize the name, so she snapped a picture and brought it up to her supervisor later that morning. The supervisor looked up at her slowly and said something that still haunts Maya to this day. "Walter? He was a night janitor here, died in that room, 304, over 20 years ago, heart attack. They found him with his mop in hand." Maya requested a transfer soon after, but before she left the ICU team, she had one last overnight shift. At exactly 3:04 a.m., the nurse call light from room 304 lit up. Maya wasn't even surprised anymore. She walked slowly toward the room, her fingers trembling as she pushed open the door. It was empty, still clean, still unused. But written on the mirror with what looked like condensation was a message: "You saw me." Behind her, the faint squeak of a mop echoed one last time. Then silence. Some people clock out and go home. Others never leave. And in hospitals, not every soul waiting in the hallways is a patient.